morning. Welcome to Morning Java, brought to you as always by our friends at Get Go Cafe and Market, where you can get 2 breakfast sandwiches for $5.
Yes, also their breakfast combo, $3.99, hash browns, coffee with your breakfast sandwich. Can't beat it.
The Pirates have almost hit the 3/4 pole in the season, which, look.
The unofficial 3/4 pole.
But they would all be unofficial unless it's the midway. But there are 40 games to go, and the Pirates have not one guy that's really stood out. And that's what I wanted to get your thoughts. You've been covering the team for us. Who's your MVP to this point?
Well, I mean, I would have to go sort of with what was the unknown quantity coming into the season, which was Corey Dickerson, the acquisition. Certainly he's been hitting the ball as well as he, was billed to come in as. I mean, he was an all-star before. People knew he could hit. But then also his defensive contribution has been well above what people were expecting.
Myself included,
yes,
right?
And other than a short stint a little while ago on the DL, he's been pretty much one of the regular guys, everyday guys for the Pirates, not been in and out of the lineup as much as many. So for just that everyday contribution, I think he's a guy you have to look at.
I would go, for consistency purposes, I would go with Starling Marte just because he's been that guy the whole way through. He's put up the power. He's gotten the steals, really high steal rate. Yeah. On top of that, his on-base percentage is never going to be great. It's not like he's, Tony Gwynn there waiting for his pitch.
Right.
But he's turned it into power and production on a consistent basis. You haven't seen, and I've teased him about this, these horrible lunges at sliders like you used to get from him. He's been there for the Pirates, including, we might add, you mentioned Dickerson's defense, Marte's defense in center field.
Yes.
Everybody had been saying for years that he could do it on a daily basis, possibly better even than Andrew McCutchen did while he was here. He's been all that. Dickerson for him, Marte for me. Chris Archer, it turns out, the Pirates gave up a lot for him. Too much?
You know what? I'm going to say no.
Why?
Just for the purpose of Archer is a known commodity. And I've always felt when it comes to prospects and guys in the minors, there's really no such thing as a can't-miss guy because you can never predict the future with injuries, with just so many variables as a guy works their way up through the minor leagues. I'm a big fan of the known quantities in the majors, and Chris Archer is that. He has been for a number of years.
Yeah, I have a hard time looking at anything that the front office does without a cynical view on it. So I look instead at what they gave up, and I'm going to be skeptical. We all had to like what we saw of Austin Meadows. There's no question about it. Tyler Glasnow showed his stuff in spurts. Shane Baz, I'm sorry, he's 19 years old. I understand they paid a lot of money to get him, first-round pick, all that other stuff. You're 19 years old. You use the term known commodity. This is an unknown commodity of the highest order. Whether he was a 7th rounder or a 27th rounder or whatever the case is. You don't want to give him up.
Right.
But if I'm the Pirates and I haven't been producing out of my drafts or out of my developing, I'm not seeing that as being as precious a commodity. Besides, Archer, all he does is get you starts. And you talk to these baseball executives around the off-season, in the wintertime, all their discussions are related to starts. How many starts did he give you? I don't hear anybody talking about ERA, strikeouts, anything. All I hear is he gave them this many starts in this many innings.
Yeah, he's durable, and he's shown that over a length of time. You got a guy like Glasnow who... Glenn Hurdle said something I thought was real interesting when they made the move, that it's like, sometimes a guy just needs that change of scenery and it'll work out for him. And maybe the Pirates thought that, for all the work they had done with him, trying to get him there, maybe he just wasn't going to make the jump in a Pirates uniform.
While on the subject of Tyler Glasnow, he's in Tampa Bay where they're doing some unusual things, to put it mildly, with their rotation.
Yeah, they sort of have gone with a starter by bullpen committee in some of their games. It seems like every fourth game or so. I don't know how often they're doing it now with trading Archer. Now they have even fewer major league starter arms.
Yeah.
But They were trying it first with Sergio Romo, who's a guy who was a closer in San Francisco,
yep.
and just letting him go start the game and go maybe once through the order, maybe as many as 3 innings, but just to go in there, and then they'd bring in a long relief arm that would maybe go another 3 or 4 innings and just sort of, change it up. Almost like the only thing I can compare it to is I've seen some high school teams do stuff like that before.
If it's accepted, because it is an interesting idea, if it's accepted by more teams than just Tampa Bay, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to work for the Rays to be accepted.
Right.
It just means that they have to look at it and see its merits for their own cause. I can guarantee you, Matt, that the one thing that'll come up more often than anything else is not having to pay 5 starters.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of it too.
Yeah.
But you also see just the way teams have been built, and I always go back as a reference point to that Royals championship team that pops into my head, where they were really built with starters that were only going to go 5 innings, and they built it out of the bullpen to have guys that could go 6, 7, 8, 9, and just have lights out arms there. And I think this is just the next natural step in that progression. The teams are going to break it down even further, and it sort of throws everything in the face of baseball orthodoxy.
Well,
but that's the day and age we're getting into.
But that's also the beautiful thing about baseball is that I don't even know what qualifies as progression. Because baseball just kind of changes, and then it boomerangs back, and then it changes, and then it boomerangs back, kind of like the stadiums and the ballparks themselves. And I can promise you that at some point in the near future, because we kind of saw this with Cleveland and Andrew Miller a couple of years ago, you're going to see the return of Elroy Face. Not of Mr. Face himself, of course, but of the concept of this was, of course, the Pirates' great closer before there was a closer. He basically, with all due respect to Maz, won the 1960 World Series.
Yeah, he was pretty much an everyday player for that Pirates team in the postseason.
Because he would come in relief in the 5th, 6th inning and just shut down the Yankees for the rest of the game.
Right.
And you're going to see some teams start tinkering with that, again, in part to save money, because the labels cost them money in free agency. Hot starter, hot shot closer.
It's just what you talked about, the winter meetings. They talk about starts.
Yep. Touched on a little bit of Pitt with our Pitt guy here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of excitement around Kenny Pickett among the Pitt faithful. We'll see how long that lasts, depending on how things go. I think especially early on, Pitt fans get really down really fast.
That's true.
Has been my experience.
It's a built-in cynicism with that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. But for Pickett to be what people are hoping, and maybe even expecting, there's got to be somebody at the other end of the ball. And who is that?
Well, that is the big question probably of camp. I mean, they've been rotating through 7 and 8 receivers, but the excitement comes with their young guys that they're looking at there. You've got a true freshman, really. He was here in spring, Shockey Jacques-Louis, who is the guy they want to take the top off the defense. I mean, he's a burner, a speedster like maybe they haven't had in recent years.
I was going to say, there's not really somebody that fits that label. I mean, unless you count, whenever Henderson would line up.
Right,
there,
and that was
Quadri Henderson, of course, who's now in Steelers camp.
That was the one comparison that was made, but even he was a guy that, you don't...
He wasn't being sent in a straight line down the field.
Yeah, he wasn't split out wide and running a 9 pattern to fly straight up the field.
And
so you've got Shockey is basically what they all call him, and this kid has been pulling in one-handed catches, looks like the real deal. On the other side, you've got another kid, Dontavius Butler-Jenkins, who's a redshirt freshman, sat out last year. He's more of the bigger body mold. I mean, he's about 210, 215 pounds, taller guy. He's the guy that can get separation, push off a little bit, get those contested balls there. So on each side, you've got that. They already had some good established slot-type guys like Rafael Araujo Lopez, Maurice French. Those are guys that are known there, but it's those 2 guys on the outside that they're really excited about.
Is it possible that we'll see more passing to the backfield, or out of the backfield, plays out of the backfield? Because that's not something that they've done.
That's true. I mean, it's been more jet sweep type things is how they get it to those guys. I think that's possible. I mean, certainly both Darren Hall and Quadri Olson have shown an ability to catch the ball.
Olson has for sure.
Olson for sure. But, I think the biggest thing they're trying to integrate is, even to open those up, is to get that deep ball. Because, let's be honest, they did not throw a good deep ball at all last year between the quarterback carousel and the guys they had getting open downfield. They just weren't. And so that's what they're hoping this year. guys like Shockey can take the top off the defense, that's going to make life so much easier for, passes out of the backfield, the guys in the slot. Teams can't load up the box against the running game that way. So it's another dimension that they need. They think Kenny Pickett can throw that ball. They just need a guy to get under it. Maybe Shockey's it.
You still got a 4-8 prediction? Oh, wait, he never actually said that. He didn't, I swear.